Welcome back to A Story to Tell from the campus of Dixie State University. This is Lane Rano. We're talking to Mark Chambers today. Mark, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Well, thanks for being here. What are you doing?
What am I doing? I am running for U.S. State Senate 28. And Senate 28 is Beaver County, Iron County, and then the northeast corner of Washington County.
So you're down here a little bit.
I'm down here. I live in Springdale, so I'm down here a lot.
Oh, you're down here a lot.
I'm down here a
So
lot.
it takes in Springdale, huh?
Yeah, that's where I live now.
How long have you lived there?
I've been there 9 years.
Where'd you come from?
Well, I'm a fifth generation Utahn. I was born and raised in Salt Lake City. I went to Cottonwood High School and then graduated from the University of Utah. And then in the 80s, I was an integral part of the Salt Lake Acting Company. I was an actor on stage, but also an arts administrator. And because of my arts administration, especially my ticketing, I was recruited as the first team to take the Utah Film and Video Festival and convert it to the Sundance Film Festival. And then after that, Salt Lake County,
Sundance Film Festival.
Sundance Film Festival. It was quite an exciting time going to Park City and creating this festival that a lot of people didn't come to those first few years. And we had a great time. And then because of my ticketing, Salt Lake County hired me to be director of ArtTix. And ArtTix is a combined ticket office for all of the nonprofit venues for Salt Lake County, and then many of the nonprofit arts groups, the symphony, the opera, the ballet, RDT, Ryrie Woodbury. And during that time, I was there for 11 years. I managed a staff of over 50, a budget of over $850,000, tracked over $15 million worth of ticket sales annually. I worked closely with the Salt Lake County attorneys, the auditors, the treasurer, the Salt Lake County Council. So I know how government accounting works and have a strong fiscal background.
What brought you down here?
Well, we stayed here 10 years ago in Springdale at a bed and breakfast. Fell in love with the bed and breakfast, and as we were checking in, the owner said, "You got a great place." We said, "You have a great place here," and he said, "Well, then make me an offer." So we decided the following day that we were going to sell everything in Salt Lake and move down here. And we moved down here, and 2 days later, the people down in Springdale, the Utah Arts Council had told them about me, and they said, "You need to recruit them." So I went to a board meeting 2 days after I arrived for the Zion Canyon Arts and Humanities Council and was elected president. And we took the organization from the red to the black, and it received the Governor's Arts Award 2 years ago. And because I was on the president of the Zion Arts and Humanities Council, a town council member came to me in 2011 and said, "Would you please run for town council?" So I ran for Springdale Town Council and was elected in 2012, served for 4 years. 2 years into that, I ran for mayor of Springdale, and I lost by 4 people. And then,
Well, that was rude of them.
Well, it was, but it's a small town, and every vote counts. And then 2 years later, I ran for a town council again and lost, but I was reappointed because one of the town council members had to step off for family reasons. And then last year, I ran for mayor and lost. So I am not the best politician.
Well, you've had a lot of experience.
Yeah. And when I say we, the person I'm with is Joe Petey. We met in college. He was also an actor. He studied with Marcel Marceau. Do you know who Marcel Marceau was? So he was trained in mime, and the Utah Arts Council hired him during the 80s to be an artist in residence. So he went to every school in the state of Utah, K-12, usually for 2 weeks, and taught mime. And then he taught first and second grade in Salt Lake City, and he won the Teacher of the Year Award, and then also won the Mayor's Arts Award for Performing Arts. We had a coffee shop for 10 years in Salt Lake called The Cup of Joe, and he managed that and roasted our beans. And then he was teaching at Roland Hall, which is a private Episcopal school for pre-K before we moved down here. We've known each other 40 years, we've been together 28 years, and we got married here in St. George December 23rd, 2013 in St. George. So that kind of takes us up to the beginning of this year, and I got 2 phone calls 2 days before the filing date. And one was from Angel Vice Mitchell. Mitchell Vice was running for U.S. Senate. It was one of the Democratic candidates. And Jenny Wilson, who I knew from the Sundance Film Festival, was running for U.S. Senate. They were both Democratic candidates running in the primary, and they said they needed to find a Democratic candidate down here. I said, great, let me help you find somebody. You've been campaigning down here, you must have a lot of names. And they both said, yes, we do, it's you. I said, no, it's not me. I said, let me make some phone calls. So I called the Washington County Democrats and said, look, this is what we need to do. And they said, we're meeting today, we'll call you back. And they called back and they said, we have good news. We found somebody and it's you. And I said, no, it's not me. And then Joe and I talked and I decided to run. One is, we believe no candidate should go unopposed. You need to have two people. One, just so you can hear what the issues are, and then you can hear what the candidate's opinions are. Second, we're a two-party system, so you need to have both sides of an issue to come up with the best solution for everybody. And then one of the key ones for me is we have lost civic dialogue of how to talk to each other. I'm from Utah, I have Utah values, and I was taught you respect somebody else's opinion. You don't have to agree with it, but you have to listen, you dialogue, and you respect each other. And we have stopped talking. We get team sports, and that's where we go. And we are too great of a people not to start talking again to come up with solutions. So that was another of the big reasons I ran.
Who was it? Rodney King in Los Angeles made the statement, we need to just all get along.
We need to get along, but we have stopped talking politics socially because it's too empowered or it's too intense. And somehow we have to be able to say, I'm a liberal, I'm a Democrat, this is what I believe, you're a conservative, this is what you believe. And we look at that. A lot of the times we're not that far apart, but we want to come to the best solution. And if we don't communicate with each other, we're not going to be the great state or the great country that we really are.
Well, yelling at each other is not communication.
If you're yelling, you're not listening,
Right.
and you can't respond. You can react, you can get your voice out, but if you don't listen, you're not going to get to solutions.
Who is your opponent?
Senator Evan Vickers from Cedar City.
I've heard of him.
He's been a politician for many years, well respected, and he and I have had lunch and we've talked about how we really want to have a civil discourse through this election, this campaign cycle.
Who bought lunch?
That I won't say.
Okay.
And what I found talking to people is people are ready to start talking to each other. And I told people my story of how I got into it, and I said I will match your energy, but there are so many people who don't feel their voices are being heard that I have a lot of people supporting me and pushing me to move forward and are engaging me and helping me. Some of the things that I'm concerned about, as I said, my husband was a teacher for many years. His mother, my mother-in-law, is in the education profession. My sister taught over 30 years in Salt Lake City. Our schools, our classes are too big. Our teachers are not getting paid what we need to pay. Most of our schools don't have a school nurse or a school counselor, and if they do, they're being shared around the schools, especially here in the rural area. If you have a problem child, we don't have the resources for that teacher to take care or help that student get to be the citizen we want them to be. Medicare, right now there's an initiative for Medicaid. The state of Utah leaves $755 million on the table every year for Medicaid that we've paid into that we haven't accepted.
How much was that?
$755 million. We need to accept that money to help those 120,000 individuals give them a step up so that they don't have to worry about their medical expense.
This is Medicaid.
This is Medicaid.
Why don't we use it?
I believe it's politics and we didn't want to touch it because of Obamacare. I don't understand why we're not accepting it because it's money that we paid into. The other thing that's important, I live right outside Zion National Park, and I believe that the federal land should remain federally controlled. I know that's controversial, but we have a lot of BLM land, we have a lot of land in this state, and a lot of it is economics for me, not just conserving the land, but yes, we'll get some money for selling off our drilling, our coal, our gas, but that's only going to be a small portion. We then still have to take care of roads throughout the rest of the land, the safety of it, and we're going to lose our pelt money. And PELT money is payment in lieu of taxes. So the federal government acknowledges that we have all this federal land around us, but the state of Utah, Washington County, St. George doesn't get tax money off that federal land, so they give us money instead. So the state of Utah gets over $30 million a year of PELT money. Washington County gets $3 million, Iron County gets $4 million, Beaver County gets $1 million. We need to make sure that we're still going to get that revenue in, and in fact, we need to tell the government we need more money, and then we need to track with our counties that they're spending it correctly and protecting that land with fire and roads.
Is that enough? Should they be paying more?
They should be paying more. And I think that we would need to make sure that our Washington delegates really are pushing for that, and that the state is also pushing our delegates to say we need to make sure that PELT money stays in place and it should be increased.
What formula do they use to pay that?
They use it based on the acreage and a dollar amount. And our dollar amount is lower than some other states, and I would say we need to increase that dollar amount.
People make the argument that at one time the government had agreed to give that money to the states, but hasn't. Is there any value to that argument?
They have been giving us the PELT money.
Not the PELT money, the land itself.
So the land itself, when Utah became a state,
Right.
there is a window of opportunity that the state can say, yes, we want this land, or no, we'll leave it in the federal lands. That was 100 years ago. We lost that window of opportunity.
So the state never responded to that.
The state never responded to it until a few years back, and now we spent millions of dollars in lawsuits trying to get that land back into our hands when we've already didn't accept it during the time frame we were supposed to.
Now, did you tell me you were born in Salt Lake?
I was born in Salt Lake.
Tell me about your parents.
So my great-great-grandmother came across with the Mormon pioneers and settled in Logan. During the Depression, they moved to Salt Lake City. My grandfather, my dad's father, was a railroad engineer. He lived in Colorado, but my dad, because he was an engineer, lived in Salina, lived in Thistle, and then they were stationed or positioned in Salt Lake City when he was in high school. And my parents met at East High School and got married. And then when I was born in 1960, they moved out to the end of 13th East, which was 6400 South at that time, where a lot of fields around us. So I saw, where I grew up, all of the expansion and growth and what happens to those fields and that lifestyle if you don't plan accordingly. And as we look down here in Washington County and Iron County, with all the tourists that are coming in, all the second homeowners are coming in, everybody who's moving here because it's a beautiful place, we need to be ready for that and be strategic of how we're going to deal with it.
I told them they should build a fence.
That's one
That was
option.
bad, wasn't it?
That's one option. There's those that say, once we're here, we don't want anybody else here. When I was about 5 years ago, there was a meeting between the gateway communities of the national park. So Springdale, Moab, Bryce. So city officials were invited to this. Park rangers were invited, and then the tourism boards from the counties and the state, and we met, and we were saying, this is too much. This is 5 years ago. We got to change this Mighty Five campaign. We can't handle the services. Our infrastructures aren't in place. And we had some good dialogue. But after the meeting, one of the marketing people came over to me and said, look, my job is to market your town. Your job is to protect your town. So you need to make sure your ordinances are in place and you're ready to deal with what's coming. And that's what I think we need to do down here. We need to make sure we want to grow, look at where we want to grow up and grow up. We have Envision Dixie, we have general plans, and what I've seen happening is we have a vision of where we want to be, or we have. Now all this growth is happening, and so dollars look better. We're reacting instead of responding with the path that we've all planned when we were calm. And I think we need to pause to say, where do we really want to be in 20, 30, 50, 60 years from now?
Well, I heard one of the city councilmen here in town say that the master plan is just a guide, not a plan.
Well, we need to have a plan. Otherwise, we're going to have roads that go nowhere, or roads, does the road come first and then the community, or does the community happen and so you need a road? We need to figure out where we're going.
What's the biggest important thing that a state senator can do?
I think one is budget. I always think if you go to the money, that determines what is important and what the issues are. So listening to your constituents, making sure
What was that again?
Listening to your constituents.
That's what I thought you said. Is that important?
Is that important? Absolutely.
No one does it.
Why don't they do that?
They don't care about us.
That's not, as I said, I'm not a good politician, so you shouldn't be listening to everything I say. I don't get elected because I believe I'm here to represent people. And the other issue is we have a wide range of opinions. So you have to listen to a lot of people, and they need to listen to each other, and then you make a decision. And that's why I think two sides are important, because if you only have one vision, you're only going to have one outcome. If you have two visions, you're going to have many different outcomes, and hopefully that's going to serve the people who you're representing the best.
There's an anyway, a famous quote, I think somebody made it up. A politician was asked, how do you feel about this particular situation? And he said, well, some of the people are for it, some of the people are against it, and I'm for the people. Now, if we really took that attitude, all of our problems would be solved.
Many of our problems would be solved.
Right.
If you look at polls or what people want, we're not following it. I think that's why you're seeing so many initiatives come in the state of Utah, is because voters and residents are upset that their issues are not being addressed, not even being addressed, first of all, and if they are, they're not getting the outcome that they believe should happen. So we've had many initiatives try to get onto the ballot. We have 3 coming up for this election.
What are they?
Medical marijuana is 1. The Medicaid expansion is 2. And then better boundaries or redistricting the voting areas. As I said, I have 3 areas. I have Beaver County, Iron County, and then it looks like a big cow udder of Washington County in the corner that shoots in, and that's what District 28 is.
The marijuana thing. Tell me about it.
So this is medical marijuana. This has, as far as I know, no THC. It is, there are people who this really benefits. And so I think we have to look at how can we provide the medical. There are people who need it and people who really it benefits. Now, we also have a huge opioid crisis in this state. We have a huge drug and alcohol problem in this state. So I think if it passes, it's going to help a lot of people, but I think that we really need to address our drug and alcohol and opioid problem. Down here in this area of the state, if you have an individual who is an addict or an alcoholic who is ready to go into treatment, they can't go into treatment until they detox, and they need 3 days of medical detox. There is no place down here to get that person help. You have to get them to Salt Lake City or Vegas, but most people's insurance is Salt Lake, so you have to drive them 4.5 hours. And if you have somebody who is physically addicted to something, by the time you hit Nephi, they are ready for you to turn around and they don't want to get help anymore. We need to find a way to get people medically detoxed down here. Is somebody agreeing with me? So I think that I would listen to people, but I think there are benefits of it, and I also think there are concerns, and we need to address the concerns if we accept the benefits.
How would this medical marijuana be made so that it is medical and not just abused?
Well, we would have to make sure that there's a prescription, that it's dispensed correctly. I don't know all the details of it, but I think that we would have to make sure we have enough oversight that we don't have those issues of abuse. We are bordered with Nevada and Colorado, where you can have recreational marijuana, and that is pouring into our state.
What about immigration?
That is a complicated subject. With Utah values, we believe in families. We believe in keeping families together. We are seeing the workforce down here being impacted by immigration. We have a lot of DACA students here. We need to find a way that people can legally immigrate into this country and help them do that. And it's affecting our jobs and it's affecting our economy. And it's also, we should be making sure that we keep families together.
You say follow the rules?
Follow-
We need to follow the rules?
Follow the rules or make rules clear, make it easier for those that are here, want to be here legally, want to be here to work, want to be a part of the community, want to assimilate. We need to have them come in and help them do that. We have jobs that people don't want to do, and many of our Mexican immigrants are willing to do those jobs, and they're vital to the economy.
Should they be paid less for that? That's why they're willing to do it, I think.
They're willing to be paid at the minimum wage. When you talk about wages, then we also go into housing. We
Right.
have such a huge housing problem here in the state and down here. I was yesterday at Switch Point, which is the homeless shelter down here in St. George. 7 of the residences are women in their 70s. They have been on a fixed income of $772 for many years. They have been pushed out of their apartments or cottages that they've had for years because the rent has increased and increased. So we have a homeless issue or people who are having problems getting housing. It all goes together. But as I go back, I may not have the answers to all of this, but I'm going to come from the people's point of view to try to bring that into the discussion. And you need to have all the voices at the table to come up with the solution.
Well, that'd be a novel approach.
Well, it's,
Work together.
we need to work. That's the foundation of our democracy. We need to work together. We know we have 2 different points of view, and then you
At least
compromise.
2.
At least, well, and nobody falls into, in my mind, nobody falls into a full
Right.
D or a full R or a full I. We all are complicated people. It's okay not to vote a straight ticket. Vote for the individual. It's okay that we have different points of view. You may have somebody who does not believe in abortion but believes in gun rights, or somebody who believes in gun rights and doesn't believe in abortion. They're not a bad person. That's their opinion. But when you talk about regulating all of us, you need to have every point of view and then try to come up with the best solution.
Wasn't one of the founding fathers said that the party system would ruin the country or something?
Well, we're going to find out here soon. I think we're at that brink, and that's one of the reasons I said I'm running, is to let Democrats and liberals come out, talk to your neighbors, let them know your point of view, but do it respectfully, and let's start the discourse and dialogue that we are one nation, we're one people. Let's work together to make it the nation that we want it to be.
One final question. What's your opinion on the count my vote thing?
Count my vote. So it didn't really affect the Democrats that
Right.
much, so we didn't really have to deal with it. I believe I'm going to let people decide themselves on that one.
Well-
I'm going to let people decide. I believe every vote matters, and I believe every voice matters. And I believe everybody has an obligation to vote. And so I hope people go out and vote. And if people want to know more about me, they can go to mark28.com and see more about my platform or who I am. People need to vote. People need to partake in this democracy. It's our democracy. We the people, we want the best for us.
People need to vote, I think, is the most important thing. The last couple of elections, 17% of the registered voters show up.
Mm-hmm.
What's with them? How can we get them to vote? Would mail-in ballots across the board help?
We're going to find that out. Washington County, this election is all mail-in ballots. People should receive them about October 16th. I mean, they mailed October 16th. They should see them in the mailbox October 18th to the 21st. So maybe that will help. Some people don't think their vote matters. And for somebody who lost by 4 people, I can tell you every vote matters. And there are people who say, well, this doesn't affect me. I can tell you, once again, if you're managing the budget, you're managing people's lives and what's going on. And you want to make sure those who are managing your dollars have your best interest at heart.
Got 2 minutes left. What's your final words?
What's my final words? You know, we live in one of the most beautiful places in the world. All around us, people are moving here because of the beauty. They're moving here or visiting here because of the landscape. And I think we need to protect our landscapes. We need to protect the quality of life. We need to make sure that we elect people who are going to have our best interest at heart. And we need to take care of each other and start talking. And I guess my takeaway, whether you vote for me or not, that you participate in the election and you talk to your neighbor, even if you know they're 180 degrees opposed to you. Start with stuff that you both value. We need to get back to what we value when you talk to somebody. And I'm a Utah, we value families, we value honesty, we value respect, we value free agency. There's a lot that we value. So let's get our values together, let's work together, and let's make this the state that has always been a great place to live.
And it still has great potential, I think.
It has tremendous potential, and we need to decide who we want to be when we grow up, because the decisions we make today are going to affect the next 60 years.
Well, I've never grown up, so I haven't faced that.
Well, then I'm going to follow in your footsteps.
Well, Mark, thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's been our pleasure. This is Lane Ronno from the campus of Dixie State University. Thank you for being with us.